Hey everyone, it's Dr. Rick, and sorry I haven't been around for a while. I just did a big hiking excursion with a group of great individuals, warriors, over at Bryce Canyon. I'll put a link down below for Dr. Rick hiking excursions in case you are interested. But, I have a lot of people, our patients, that are now getting ready for spring. Because of spring, we shed our clothes. Because of shedding our clothes, we can see some accumulation of stuff. Clothes can hide a lot of stuff, but you're eventually going to have to take everything off or at least trim down to summer clothing. And it's tough. If you already have some extra weight gain from the years, from failed resolutions at New Year's, and then you hit a decade change, like I'm going to be 60 in a couple months. I'm ready for, but it also hallmarks the beginning of the end, I guess. I'm going into it with everything I got. I think I have a head start. So for those of you who exercise your heads off, good, I think it'll pay off. For those of you who are not inspired to exercise because you're busy, that's okay. Come and join me and my warriors, my patients, and we'll get to a healthy lifestyle, hopefully longevity together. There are a couple of things that are really common when I try to make the first points of advice to my patients. I'll usually have my patients give me a diet diary for about 5 days, 5 average days. And I'll have them take pictures because tracking, let's just face it, when you have to write down stuff, calories, volume, macros, percent of fat, fiber, it's a pain in the ass to do. So nobody usually likes to track. And then to just think in your mind, because I have some patients that do that, I say, give me a 5-day diet. Oh, I can tell you right now. No, I want you to, because a lot of us don't realize what we're snacking on. So I want pictures of beverages, anything that goes in solid, anything that goes in liquid, alcohol, snacks, midnight stuff. And I tell my patients, don't be shy, because I can break it down for you and then tell you how to change that. But the majority of Americans, number one, we eat too much. And that's why we're leading the world with obesity. I do have some patients that have tried and they're trimming down their calories in, but even with trimming down the calories in, say 1,200 instead of 3,000, my patients sometimes still have a problem with trimming down the fat or losing the waistline, losing the saddlebags, losing the love handles. And there's many different levers for this, but one of the easiest, or I shouldn't say it's easy, it's really hard, but one of the most assured ways to lose weight is to just cut down your calories. Everybody that you talk to as far as a personal trainer says, that formula doesn't work, but it does. It still comes down to what you eat and what you burn up, your activities. The problem is I'll have some people that try to exercise a lot and they end up hurting themselves. So if you're exercising your head off, and don't go by the measure where you grab those handles on the stair stepper or the elliptical, and it says you burned up 6,000 calories. Screw that. There's so many different ways to formula or to calculate calories burned, true calories burned. It takes a lot of effort to do that. Truly, if you walk a lot for a couple hours, you can probably burn off a couple hundred. But who has time to walk that much? I mean, I take people hiking, and just to train for the endeavors that I take people on in national parks, the only thing we can do is really walk once a week, twice a week, and that's it because nobody has time or the weather's too inclement. I think it's important to do something on a regular basis, but this way, the calories going in, if you become astute at measuring and knowing and just have the goal to hallmark, okay, in 3 months, I want to be able to do this gracefully. That will get you successful with trimming down some fat. Now, if you are morbidly obese, you might not notice it because there's a lot of things that have to change for your size to decrease. If you're just overweight, you might notice it a lot faster. But I gotta tell you, especially in Chicago, it might be theoretically easy to cut down on your volume. But when everybody else is eating around you, when there's high stress at work, when you get home because you haven't eaten all day and you're starved, but you're gonna go to sleep in an hour, the timing's off. So I have a couple of ideas in general. Now, this is just meant to be an educational video. For my patients, this is meant to be the springboard to what we're going to be talking about when we have a consult. All my patients get consults a couple times a year. If you want to join up, I'll put a link down below. If you're not getting anywhere with your doctors and they're just giving you medicines after medicines after medicines, you're going to have to take care of that root cause sooner or later. I mean, I was working for somebody. Every patient that came in was like on at least 7 medicines. 2 medicines for mood, another medicine for blood pressure, another medicine for diabetes, another medicine for cholesterol. It's terrible. And I think it's needed. It's needed to control and put Band-Aids on diseases, but you really have to reverse the root cause. You have to find a root cause. You got to reverse it if you want to get off the medicines. It's easy to take a pill. It's hard to do lifestyle change. And everybody has a different formula. Not everybody likes hiking. Not everybody likes CrossFit or lifting weights. Not everybody likes running. But I think those are all ideas. And I just worked out now. I go to Planet Fitness. I work out usually 15 minutes a day. And that's what sustains me at this point. And I have stopped my testosterone, by the way. So those of you who follow me, I was on testosterone for a short time. It's now time to stop the testosterone and just maintain on my own. I think if you optimize your hormones, you can use science. And I just said I don't like using a lot of medicines, but you can use medicines for a truncated amount of time to get you past the big hump. And once you get past that hump, then it's time to wean off the medicines. So I just happen to have a couple here because one of the biggest factors when I mentioned when you're trying to cut down and everybody else is eating around you or everybody else is stressing you out, it's really easy to imbibe in alcohol, and I wouldn't do that if you're in training. It's just sugar and calories. Sugars, calories, and carbohydrates, which makes you feel good, but does it really serve you? No, it just gives you a fatty liver, and it turns into crap. Having to fight all that and the advertisements that you see on TV, and when you go to the checkout of any place, there's food everywhere. It's just very tempting. You're constantly bombarded with all this information. It's a losing game unless you have a very good coach. And sometimes we can guide you. Coaches can guide you, whether it's a personal trainer, whether it's a life coach, whether it's a doctor. I think there's different ways to get there, but try not to do it on your own. If you're one of the few lucky ones that can do it on your own, cut back on calories to minuscule amounts and then exercise your head off, you might get to a certain goal, but you have to be careful you don't get hurt. You also have to be careful you don't have any medical problems before you start cutting down. But appetites will always be defeating. I'm just going to talk about medicines. Medicine called Wegovy. It was a diabetic medicine, but it is now used for weight loss. A pharmaceutical company found another reason to get it approved aside from diabetes, and it does work, but I don't want you to be on this forever. You can lose about 20 to 30 pounds within a couple months using this. There's also appetite suppressants in the form of Topiramate. This used to be a seizure medicine. They cut it down in dose to a headache medicine. They cut it down in dose to just an appetite suppressant. It causes a little bit of nausea, but hey, if the nausea is there and you don't eat, I think that is worth it for a short time. If you happen to have headaches too, it can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. This is Contrave. I have a pharmacy in Lombard, Illinois that gives a discount on this. It works in a different way. There's a whole bunch of different medicines you can take advantage of. There's also herbs, but they're not as strong. And there's also willpower, and that usually is fleeting, especially if you're busy. Just to break it down now, and I'll talk about medicines in the next couple of videos. If you are the average person and you're too high on your calories, the first objective is to cut back on your calorie count. And if you don't know how to count calories, use MyFitnessPal, and you can actually put your food in for 5 days if you want to enter it. The free version will spit out fibers, proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, and then total calories at the end of your measurements. So that's one way to do it. Or you can be my patient and take pictures. So if you just cut down on total volume, that will get you a little bit of weight loss. You just have to see if you can survive that because it hurts. Those of you who have tried that Prolon box, which is a deep dive, 5 days into 1,000 calories on the first day and 750 calories on the second to the 5th days, that will work. I've lost 10 pounds easy in 5 days, 6 days. But man, that 3rd day sucks. And I'll do a new video on Prolon. I sell them for cheaper than what you can get online. I think online it's like $300. But you have to be a patient of mine to get them cheap. Volume is always going to be your best friend. If you can cut back, and if you want to use the appetite suppressants, fine. If you just want to use macronutrient changes, you can do that too. Because carbohydrates typically secrete or make you secrete insulin from the pancreas. Insulin will put the carbohydrate down into the cell, but after it's all away, then the insulin bottoms out and you get hungry again. There's that cycle that you want to put the carb in, take care of the carb, but then you're hungry in a little while. I think there's a joke with Chinese food. Sometimes if you just change around your macronutrients to be more dominant in fat and protein, those two macronutrients, different than carbohydrates, those two macronutrients will give you higher satiety. So you'll actually be less hungry. My example is usually at the end of a big dinner, nobody has room for more steak, even a bite. But at the end of a big dinner, if somebody offers ice cream, you can finish a bowl of ice cream even if you're the same fullness. There's something about sweets and sugar that triggers catch-all that says, you're not hungry anymore. Go for that. Go for the dessert. You have to push back. And there's something in Okinawan called harahachibu, or maybe it's Japanese, where you stop when you're about 7 to 8/10 full of food, and you have to get a gauge for that, and you have to measure it. You push back when you're about that level, and you just wait, because it takes the stomach a little bit of time before the stretch receptors in the stomach and the fat receptors, that's ghrelin and leptin, reach the brain and say full. Sometimes you can blow past that and keep on eating, and then by the time you get the message full, you're overstuffed. Bottom line is you cut back on the volume. Number two, you change around your macronutrient source. Now, you're going to hear from the plant-based guys, and I was one of them when I was a vegan for about 2 years. You're going to hear from the plant-based guys that the data says too much protein equals cancer and heart attack, and the old data does. But the new data is coming out, and it's not going to be, it took a long time to get the old data, but the new data, especially with the keto guys and the carnivore guys and the paleo guys, it's coming out, and these guys are lowering their numbers. I've done that too. So I did a self-experiment with a vegan, with Prolon, the 5-day fast, and with pure carnivore. And my numbers stayed the same. My cholesterol stayed the same. My insulin level stayed the same. I think there's a way to manipulate the carbohydrate. I think the carbohydrates are the igniters. And that's what the data says now. But you really have to control that. If you can, and you work it right, you can get through it without having too much suffering, and then get shredded. The term shredded is a bodybuilding term where you just lose a lot of body fat and you have like ripped abs. I don't think I have any ripped abs at this point, but the best I had was when I was a carnivore. I just can't eat all that meat all the time. So I'm switching back because my microbiome is saying I need more fiber. Suffice to say, volume, decrease. Macro, switch around. More protein and fat, less carbs. If you have to have carbs because you're a plant-based athlete, fine, but try to make it complex, not simple. The more processed something is, the more simple it becomes. If you have a whole food, mostly plant-based diet, you will live to 100. It does take a little bit of practice to be able to cook like that, and I don't think we're teaching our kids that anymore. The other thing is timing. I talked about fasting, intermittent fasting. Because of the amount of space that we have between meals, there is great data that says if you can take, say, 24 hours of whatever you want to eat, at least this is what they found in animal studies, you measure up what an animal eats in 24 hours, and you squeeze it all, same volume, into like 8 hours. And even though you're eating the same volume, but you're just pushing it 8 hours, the animal will lose weight, but it takes a little bit more time than, say, a deep dive into Prolon or a 5-day fast. I do intermittent fasting. I usually don't eat after 8:39. I don't eat anything until 10 o'clock the next day or 11 o'clock the next day. I think that does give a signal, and plus I don't have to, but I just talked about exercise. If you're doing low carbohydrate and you're not fat adapted, you might have a problem with hitting the wall. When you exercise your head off, whether it's cardio or resistance or just activities of daily living, ADLs, if you're a construction worker and you're lifting up a hammer or jackhammer, you're doing a lot of moving, that's honest, but will it be enough to offset this? I don't know, everybody's a little different. There's something new called cardiovascular resistance, which is like CrossFit. You lift a lot, high repetition, and you burn a lot. So bottom line is you really have to do something. Again, I get by with 15 minutes a day, usually 4 to 5 days a week, and that is it. Now that I'm training for a big hike again and getting to be 60, I'll be spiking that 20 minutes, 30 minutes, but that's all I spend. Again, I've invested to get to this point where I have enough muscle mass and less body fat where I can just do enough to make it pump, make muscles get what they need and out. But I'm intense when I get to that 15 minutes. Don't just go do that. In fact, my patients, I always ask if there's an injury, fix the injury first, build up to cardiovascular resistance. And when you get to a certain point, come back and I'll make it even harder. But I think there's always going to be a challenge. You have to move muscle. You got muscle, you got to move it. I talked about processing already. The more processed your foods are, the higher the likelihood that it's going to be broken down and really absorbed fast. We want to absorb food slowly. You want to eat slowly. You want to eat in peace. You don't want to eat on the run. It's not good to eat standing up in front of the sink. And I was notorious for doing that too. You have to eat together and have fun and be with the family. That's the way you get the hormones to digest properly. If you eat on the go, then you're eating under duress. So even if you have a big prime rib dinner, but somebody's holding a gun to your head, the amount of hormone because of the gun on your head will turn that prime rib dinner into fat. It'll be stored because you're under duress. Your stress and fight or flight response is high. If you're in love, making love, well, I don't know if I'd eat when I'm making love, but when you're in love and happiness and then you eat and digest, then you have the digestive hormones really spiking and you can digest properly instead of store. When you are in stress or in duress, you have high fight or flight, cortisol, epinephrine, adrenaline. That takes your food and puts it into storage to run away from danger. So you can see the two differences, which will probably be another video because we're all stressed out and nobody likes spirituality. Nobody goes to church. I do the rosary all the time. I think it's really important to have spirituality, but it's a tough sell. I want to leave that for later, but thought I'd break into my new series, which is going to be losing weight. Please sign up, follow me. If you are feeling challenged with your life and you want to make changes, I'm the guy who can help you. You can also hire a team if it's paid for by insurance, but I will tell you, your medical insurance, especially if you're catastrophic, will pay for hospitalization. So it's your choice. You can wait till you get to that catastrophic level, and then you'll break even and you'll take advantage of your insurance. Or you can put your insurance aside, just keep it for just in case, but try to dig in deep and change your life. I'd like to live till 100. That means my grandson will be 40. He'll have sons on his own. I'll be a great grandpop if I can get to 100. My short-term goals are to conquer the world. My long-term goals are to conquer disease, at least in me. If I can help you do it too, great. If you have any questions, put them in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching up until this point. Stay healthy, and I'll see you at the next video.